Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and welcome to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we take a look at a Elder Scrolls creepypasta. We've done quite a few already, but this one is the Skyrim beta disc. What could be truly creepy about a beta version of Skyrim? What's on this disc? Well, sit back, relax, and let's see what the Skyrim beta has to offer. I suppose before I begin the story, I should say that it doesn't involve creepy old men giving out free video games. It doesn't involve haunted eBay auctions, evil plush toys, or possessed download files. The story is just, well, I don't really know what it was, I just experienced. I'll describe events as best as I can. The story began a few months ago when my Uncle Jerry passed away. No, he wasn't killed by a demon or anything like that. He was just a guy who liked his cigarettes a little too much and, unfortunately, died from it. After the funeral, we worked on clearing out his old house. It was while I was checking the belongings in Uncle Jerry's attic that I found it. My uncle had worked as a PR guy for Bethesda for the last 8 years of his life, mainly dealt with any potential controversies that could have come from their products. He wasn't all that into video games, but hell, a job was a job. While searching through one cardboard box labeled Bethesda, I came across a blank CD case with an unmarked disc inside. Tucked inside the case was a crude, folded note. My curiosity was piqued, and I quickly opened the case and unfolded the note. It read thusly: Jerry, this thing has got to be destroyed. Make sure nobody finds out about the Skyrim beta. The controversies could ruin us. Todd. When I read all this, my mind was just flooded with questions. A Skyrim beta disc? Those even existed? And Todd. Isn't Todd Howard, the guy behind the Elder Scrolls games and Fallout 3. Just why was he sending this to my uncle? What could be so horrible about this disc? I didn't even know a Skyrim beta had even existed, and if it did, how could it cause so much controversy? I had always been a fan of the Elder Scrolls games. I must have clocked in almost 200 hours playing Oblivion, and I own Skyrim for both consoles and PC. I figured there'd be no harm in playing this supposed beta, seeing what the big deal even was, and then I could just destroy the disc. I stashed the CD case into my coat, finished cleaning the house out with my family, and then when we headed home, I booted up my PC. It was a pretty decent setup, and if it could handle the regular version of Skyrim, then the beta would be no trouble. I decided I'd write a journal just so I could record the differences between this and the actual release. The following is a record of my experiences in the Skyrim beta. Day 1. The loading screen was more or less the same, with the same animation of the Bethesda logo and all. The main menu was pretty similar too, though I did notice that the dragon logo was more rusted and was missing the tips of one wing. The options menu was pretty small and only had rather basic options for changing the volume of music and sound effects, and for toggling the difficulty. There was nothing that needed changing right now, so I decided to just jump into the game. A pleasant surprise, no overly long intro in this version of the game, you're just dropped into the character creation screen of the same brick wall in Helgen. The character models look detailed enough, fairly similar to those in Skyrim already, but there's something off about all the characters. Regardless of the race I pick, something is wrong about their eyes, and I just can't put my finger on it. I decided to ignore it and just create a red-scaled male Argonian to play as, since they're my favorite race in the game. The first thing I noticed is that it looks like there's already been a dragon attack. Helgen just looks utterly devastated with all the buildings either smashed or burning. There are bodies littered everywhere, but they seem far more mutilated than the corpses in the vanilla game. Several textures seem stretched out absurdly, and all the sounds seem rather rough and fuzzy. I suppose that sort of thing is typical for a beta. As I move through the ruins of Helgen, two corpses stick out to me. The first is that of Ulfric Stormcloak, the rebel leader in Skyrim. His body seems to be impaled on some sort of bone, which on closer inspection appears to be a tip of dragon wing. The next is General Tullius, the Imperial leader in the normal version of Skyrim. Half of his body has been crushed to a red paste under the weight of a fallen tower. I had heard rumors that the game was initially going to have a very different plot, but I didn't think that meant removing the rebellion storyline from the game entirely. Very interesting. Day 2. Explored all the ruins of Helgen today. Looted whatever useful items I could find. I made sure to deck my character out with some sturdy light armor, and I armed it with the steel sword I recovered from Tullius' remains. One rather interesting thing I noticed in this version of the game is that the inventory screen is similar to Oblivion's in that it allows the player to see a 3D representation of their character whenever they use the inventory. I set off from Helgen into the game world with no indicators telling me what my mission is, or even what happened to this town. I noticed that the sky is pretty dull. Despite the in-game clock telling me that it's supposed to be noon, the hills in the distance seem a little blocky, and brown rather than a lush green or snow-capped white. All the wildlife is hostile, even normally passive creatures like deer. They die easily enough, but it's bizarre and unnerving to see normally peaceful creatures acting like this. I explore a little more, raid some mines, but to my surprise, there aren't even any bandits inside, not even corpses. What is going on here? Day 4. I decided to head into the neighboring town of Riverwood today, but even at a distance I could tell something was very wrong with that town, and I swear to God when I walked into the town I heard laughter, and very faint titters being carried on the wind. It was like looking at Helgen all over again. All the buildings had been smashed into rubble, with flaming pyres standing in several streets. Have the dragons done this too? Come to think of it, I actually didn't see any dragons at all so far. A few bodies lined the streets, but they were all in such maimed conditions that I couldn't even recognize them. At first I was about to just press on to Whiterun, but then I caught sight of something. A cellar door that hadn't been destroyed. I made my character draw his sword, and then I entered the cellar. It was dark inside, only a dim candle in the corner provided any light. Saw a figure hunched onto the floor, so still that I almost mistook it for a corpse, and then it, or rather he, stood up with a woodsman axe in his hand. Took it all away from me, killed my wife and my boy, but you won't get to me too. Never should have come here. When he spun and lunged at my character, I recognized his figure immediately. Hod, the lumberjack. He looked deranged, his face caked with dirt and blood, his eyes were manic, and much like I noticed with my own character, they seemed very wrong to look at. Hod swung wildly at my character, and my attempts to yield did nothing to slow him down. He had only half of his health, so with some regret I chopped him down. What had done this to him? To the whole town? Dragons could attack towns in normal versions of the game, but they could never do damage like this. In one corner of the cellar, next to a pile of what I hope is mud, I found several rolled up bits of parchment. I could interact and read them, but most only had blurred nonsense on them. But one stuck out though. A note that had the following on it. Mad Hunt, Daedra, Dremora, Bloodmoon, Collapsed Kingdoms, Nirn Forsaken and Fallen, Blackreach. Daedra, Daedra, Daedra. Nonsense again. Was he trying to say that Daedra had done all this? Why did he bring up Blackreach? It was a massive and mysterious underground labyrinth in the vanilla game, but it didn't have anything to do with Daedra. My head hurts. I'll save the game and resume playing later. Day 7. I did a few days of exploration trying to find the entrance into Blackreach. If something is going down here, I want to know. Maybe I'll find out what's doing all this. I passed by Whiterun. I decided not to go in. When I saw it was shattered and burnt too. I heard more laughter on the wind, and it grows louder the closer to Blackreach I get. At night the sky is utterly cloudless, and the moon is a bloody red shade. Swear to God, it's tracking my motions when I'm in view of it, like a giant red eye in the heavens. I saw dead giants on the road. Entire trees had been fashioned into giant stakes to impale them. The sight fills me with dread. If giants could be put down like that, then I need to level my character. Day 11. Not much to think about. I spent the last few days trying to level up my Argonian in any way I can. I must be getting paranoid because I think the wild animals are growing bigger and stronger with each passing day. They might be growing more numerous too. Day 13. I reached Blackreach today. It's very different than what I'd expected, to say the least. The Falmer are far larger in number here than they were in the vanilla game, but what's even stranger is that they don't even seem to notice me. I'm aware they're blind, but usually they attack whenever something gets close to them. They seem to be reconstructing Blackreach, fixing the broken bridges and adding in lighting along the paths. It's fascinating to watch a city being rebuilt in-game in real time, but I can't help but wonder why they're doing this. The cavern is full of echoes. I'm hearing that damn laughter everywhere I go. Day 15. I've noticed something very odd. After 2 days spent watching the Falmer working on rebuilding the city, I stopped Dremora patrolling the inner city. Then I stopped Golden Saints and Dark Seducers for a while in the center of the underground city. I think I even saw a Knight of Order or two. It's a whole city full of Daedra, and they have all the Falmer under their control. Day 18. The Falmer are damn fast workers. By now, Blackreach seems to have been fully restored, and the Falmer have all headed to the center of the town to pray and worship for something. I can't understand the alien words coming out of their mouth, and as the gates are totally locked, I can't get close enough to examine the city. Went to sleep on a bedroll I found, and then shit hit the fan. When my Argonian awoke, I found that I was somewhere completely different, unable to move him, and I couldn't even turn the camera. The room was pitch black, only a small segment of brick floor visible. Trying to use the mouse button brought up the message that my hands were bound. I heard the laugh again, and it was so close and clear that it was unmistakable. A figure walked into view, and I almost couldn't believe who I was seeing. Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. He looked similar enough to how he appeared in Oblivion, with updated textures, and a better model, of course. When he got closer, I realized that it was what it was really about those characters' eyes that I found to be off. They all had eyes like his, with an odd yellow tint and cat-like slits for pupils. How could I have not seen it sooner? Well, well, what do we have here? A nosy Parker? Sheogorath asked, his mouth twisting and contorting into an unnatural smile, like a Cheshire cat. For the first time since I put this beta disc on, I had a dialogue choice. I picked the first option. What's going on here? What's going on? Well, my boy, don't you know? The Aedra have gotten sick and tired of your little dimension and went off to try to make a better one. We Daedric princes are using it as our own little playground now, Sheogorath remarked. It was then I noticed that the skin was chalky white, and I saw how disheveled his hair was. He just looked sick, ill. Very confusing to say the least. Was this game supposed to be set in a world where the Daedra won in Oblivion? I picked another dialogue option. Why are you, of all people, doing this? Why? Sheogorath asked, his teeth gleaming slightly. My dear lamb, do you think that just because I'm a Prince of Madness that I'm only silly? I constantly change how I act, just to keep things fresh. I might spend 200 years utterly stationary, but I might spend 50 years acting like a nymphomaniac. The last 300 years I acted like a random loony. Now though, well, I want to be pure evil. Pure, unhinged, unquestionably evil, and allow me to make a demonstration to you. The camera started to shake as Sheogorath reached forward. There was a sickening crunch as my whole screen turned red. Then I was in a loading screen. My character awoke in a clearing in the woods. In the dead of night, I only had a quarter of my health, so I went into the inventory to get a healing potion. I almost vomited at what I saw, though. My character's right arm had been ripped off from the elbow down, tatters of bloodied skin and a broken stump of bone visible at the end of the stump. Sheogorath had maimed him. I exited the inventory and heard the laugh again. I looked up to see the blood moon hanging directly above me in the sky, casting an eerie red glow over everything. There was a rustling in the woods, and then all around me, shambling beasts began to emerge from the woods, creatures that had one point been humanoid, now crudely merged with parts from bears, wolves, and trolls. They seemed to be weeping in an undescribable agony. Their eyes all had that golden tinge to them, teeth, so many teeth glinting red in the light of the blood moon. They closed in, and with a loud shriek, I opened the pause menu and quit to the desktop. Never again. I am not touching this fucked up game ever again. And that was the last journal entry I ever made. After that, I uninstalled the game and broke the disc, my final gift in memory of my uncle. I've recovered from the fucked up things I saw, and I haven't found it haunting me in the vanilla version of Skyrim. It seems like it's all over. For me it is, anyways. I wish I knew what had caused all this, but maybe it's better not to know. I never bothered to ask Bethesda about it. They denied the disc even existed, and my video recording software never worked when I played the thing. So I have no proof of any of it happening. I just wanted to get the story off my chest, believe it or don't believe it. I have to wonder, though, were there any other copies of this beta disc released onto the world? Well, that was another Skyrim creepypasta in the veins of the tried and true beta video game style of creepypastas. Now, this style is all about a totally different game that was worked on in the studios of said game and kept hidden from the public, and in a way it's sort of like a lost episode. Now, it's not that impressive, you know, it's not, and by impressive I mean it's not creepy as a creepypasta should be, and that's sort of where the style kind of plays into that entire thought process as well. For these kind of creepypastas to work, especially gaming, right? Just like lost episode creepypastas require a sense of a fourth wall being busted down, gaming creepypastas really have to do that. There has to be that element, and it has to be done well. You know, there's got to be a little bit of something that affects the player, or the player system, or the console, or whatever is going on, beyond the restrictions of just the game on the, you know, just what's happened in the game itself, you know. And whereas that doesn't have to happen all the time necessarily, there does have to be a certain point where you do get this sense of files being thrown about, things going to happen to the game system itself, something sinister happening underneath the code itself. Now, for example, when I do EXE game videos, or, when I cover certain horror-type games that are really, really on the indie spectrum, they may produce certain files on my computer, and those do have a genuinely creepy aspect to them, and it's those events in a creepypasta that, if done right, they really do end up being creepy. Now, they don't all have to do that. There doesn't have to be that element to it, but it has to have some form of dread underlying, right? Just to affect you even deeper, just to really put everyone into the whole, thought of how creepy such a situation could be. Because remember, you have to put the person into this mode where you are. You have to immerse them, is what really has to be done in a creepypasta. Now, you can have a different beta copy of the game, but again, if there's no fourth wall being busted, it again just becomes this fan fiction or mod request type of deal, really. Now, although it's hard, and this point is really difficult, it really helps for these type of creepypastas to have screenshots, or even better if they could have video. But it's understandable if they don't. They have to be perfect. They have to be amazing doctors, and if they're not, they can really kill the whole thing in a heartbeat. Case in point, if it's as good as something from, like, say, the Godzilla NES creepypasta, yeah, that's brilliant. But if it's, just something hashed together, it's gonna kill the whole thing in a heartbeat, like I said earlier. It's just, it's not gonna work. Now, other points, and this is creepypasta specific too, especially for this one, is why would the PR person have this, and why not it be destroyed internally? They took a risk, really, Bethesda, and they got it leaked unnecessarily. Now, I understand PR people are related and into this entire aspect as well, but why would you give the beta disc out when it could be getting leaked? You could have just destroyed it right there and then if it's that risque. Seems kind of unlike, too, anything Bethesda would even think of doing, because they're very, very good on, locking down stuff. And even then, when you look at this whole beta as well, the way it played out, it does again seem a little unlike of what Bethesda Softworks would really do with their games. If you do this stuff, please make sure the company that you're basing your creepypasta off seems to be the, type to do the stuff you portray in your creepypasta, especially if it's beta related. And that being said, beta doesn't mean it's going to be this different. I mean, this is a stark contrast to the actual, game itself, which, isn't anything wrong, but it has to have some level of believability there for a creepypasta to work. But all in all, it's decent, and as many errors as I listed, it is a good creepypasta, in the sense that it was worked on, there was build-up, but the problem here is that, because there wasn't that whole fourth wall being busted down, it really just became this fanfic kind of feel to this creepypasta, Hell, if you look at the Oblivion mod that we did way back in the day, it had this relation to a serial killer that mirrored itself in the game. It's those kind of stories that really work well versus the stuff that aims to just look like some kind of mod for the game itself. But that's really all it needs, and aside from those problems, it was decently well done. So, gotta give kudos to that. If you want to check out the creepypasta, links in the description below. And this has been another episode of Haunted Gaming. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. This is me, Mudahar, and I'm out.